Hey all, it's Nim, or Nimicry if you're feeling professional, and welcome to the YouTube video. Now today we're going to be talking about RNG, or Random Number Generator. Random Number Generators control the vast majority of the rewards and loot in the games that I play, so I figured let's try to maybe parse something out and see if we can't make them more enjoyable, or at least feel more rewarding. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Stand by for Nimpact in 3, 2, 1.
Alright, so here we go. We've got ourselves the duty commenced. Let's talk about RNG. So as we talked about in the intro, RNG is Random Number Generator, meaning there's going to be a set of items on a table, and you roll, essentially see, okay, what am I going to get? How am I going to win? Is it possible that I win? So the way it breaks down is a certain number of items will drop. The game will automatically choose some of those items, then you will roll on those. So it's a nested RNG, essentially, because obviously you're not going to, if you're in a group setting, you're not going to be the only one by default who gets who wants the things. Specifically, if it's gear that you can't use, and someone else can, they're going to be like, hey, I need that upgrade, so give me that upgrade. Alright, how do we make RNG, though, feel rewarding? Because we all know this I'm going to lay out a very familiar scenario. It's an old story, but it never gets old. You're playing with a person who just, stands in the fire, decides to face tank the boss, gets slapped around, falls down, everything's great, and a piece of gear drops. You're like, oh, look, it's the Sword of Awesomeness. I've been needing the Sword of Awesomeness. That's going to complete my gear. And then you roll on it. And boom. The guy who spent more time face down than let's say an adult film star, decided, wins the sword, and you're like, oh, how does this happen? Now, again, it's RNG. It's a random number generator. You rolled, you had the dice, you go forward. That doesn't feel very rewarding. Now, granted, of course, everybody plays bad from time to time. I know I have. In this dungeon, you can actually end up seeing an example of it where I get a vault stack and die later. How do we make it feel rewarding? Okay, well, a couple of things. I posit first knowledge. Give the player knowledge. What do I mean by giving the player knowledge? I mean, tell them what's on the loot table. Tell them what are the odds of it. Tell them that you're also getting a currency to spend in addition to possibly getting the item. Now, of course, you don't have to do that during a leveling process, because by its very nature, you're going to keep leveling and leveling and leveling. You're going to out-level it eventually. But when you're talking max level, where it's like, okay, this is the maximum you're going to have for the rest of the patch for, let's say, 3-4 months. This is the maximum. You're not going to get any higher. So how do we make this? And obviously, eventually, if you keep pulling the slot machine, yeah, you might eventually get it. But how many pulls until people go away? The idea here, we want to keep MMO, we want to keep the MMOs only stay alive if they're populated and vibrant, meaning things have to stay around. You have to have groups to run dungeons with. We saw this problem with Anthem, where they were having trouble filling their higher level dungeons and strongholds, if I believe that's what they're called, because people weren't running them. They just weren't. Now, you can offset that by rewards, but that's a whole other story. We're talking about RNG. So knowledge would be the first thing I would say. So you tell them what's on the loot table. You tell them that they're getting 2 chances at it, essentially, which is through currency and rolling. You tell them the odds. And most people are at least going to say, like, okay, well, obviously the Sword of Awesomeness only has like a 1 in 100 chance of dropping. Well, okay, so obviously it makes sense that I'm not going to see that much. It at least lets people know, oh, okay, this is not, I'm not being, no one's putting their thumb on the scale, so to speak. Now, another thing you may ask is, well, Nim, let's look at the loot tables. Why is it that we have so many items on a loot table? It's a good question. How many items does a loot table need for a standard boss? Should a raid boss have more? Well, I would say yes in that case, because raid bosses, I think, should have, maybe a pet, a mount, 2 pets, 2 mounts, something like that. Maybe a vanity item, something that is put as extra as opposed to the gear. It doesn't take up a gear slot, doesn't take up a token slot, doesn't take up a currency slot, just something extra for people to roll on, to be like, hey, congratulations, you got the pet. Awesome. The question comes to mind here is, how do we make RNG feel rewarding? What, in your mind, think of it right now, what would make, if you were playing a game like this, what would make it feel rewarding for you? Is it guaranteed success after a certain number of runs? Is it having a smaller loot table maybe so that there's a higher chance of you getting the loot that you need And keep in mind, if we if we condense the loot tables down, then that means that more classes are going to share the same gear. So there's a chance that that awesome bracelet that dropped is now used by your entire party, as opposed to just, in the old system, was you. There's no perfect solution to RNG. And because there's no perfect solution to RNG, we have to take that into account. I would posit that one item per armor type should be on every boss thing. So, for example, all these bosses here, they drop one of every item, as far as I can see from the loot table. So I could get a firearm off this as a machinist. Dancers could get their chakrams. White mages could get their staves. And I could also get my armor. So I could get a hat. I could get a neck piece. I could get a chest piece. And same thing with everybody else. And of course, there are some armor types that are shared between classes. So, for example, striking is, I believe it is pugilist and samurai, where I have aiming. Aiming has archer, bard, ninja, machinist. There's a few other, and of course, there's maiming, fending. There's a few things that have overlaps. Now, the reason we have the overlaps is so you don't have a bloated loot table ultimately filled with useless loot. Because what if you have a party of all melee and you keep getting caster stuff? Now, obviously, that happens. Random's gonna random, but you want to cut down on that as much as possible, because if I'm running something hard and I'm pushing, and all I see is, oh, well, that'd be perfect for a black mage. Great. Funny how we have no black mages. Or, oh, that'd be perfect for a dragoon. Funny, we don't have any dragoons. Or, oh, that'd be perfect for the fact that Nim got hit by a mechanic, and it happens. You saw it right there. So, reducing loot tables would be another thing. And a third option, and I think this is probably the most extreme and the least likely to work, is normalizing gear levels for content. So, Final Fantasy does a thing where they sync your gear at certain dungeons. Not every dungeon does it, but they'll sync your level, sync your gear to a certain, hey, you're locked. You know, the Drowning Court, the Drowned City of Scala is, I believe, 290. They lock you, you're 290. Right? You're level 70, 290. Now, earlier leveling dungeons will lock you into level syncing. That's fine. That's nothing there. You keep your gear, but you do lose a little bit of your stats. But if you're very high up, you're on the end of the power curve, and you kind of cheated a little bit. Anyways, but if you were to create, okay, everyone who goes in here to do this dungeon, right? You have 300 item level. That's it. You can get gear out of it that's higher, but you only get 300 item level. Now, I don't think that'll work, even though it is technically a fix to some of the end consequences of RNG, because if you normalize everything across the board, you actually shoot people in the foot who are grinding, who have really tried to fix everything and get like, okay, I got the best in slot, I materiated the best, I got everything, I hit all the breakpoints, and then you just cut my legs out from underneath me. Is it a more casual, friendly option? It depends on how hard you make the content, in my opinion. Make the content extremely hard and extremely tight to where you have to get every GCD matters. No, it's going to be very difficult, and it probably won't be done by very much. If you make the content too easy, then it just becomes, who cares? We burned through that in a night. It was out, and then it was done. I think that's probably the least likely option that'll be taken care of, that would be implemented to have this happen. But the more I think about it, the more I like the idea of having a mode like that, because then you can add time limits, then you can add extra stuff, and you create 1 point of balancing. 1 point. So, who knows? It might actually work. I doubt it. In my heart of hearts, I don't believe that would be a thing. But, hey, again, these are just my ideas that I'm throwing out here. We went over, of course, with giving the players knowledge. Telling them what they get, what are the odds, and, of course, tell them, hey, you get some tomes, too, so you can eventually buy the stuff, let's say, if you're just extremely unlucky. It's happened. We've all felt extremely unlucky, especially when we fought hard and lost that Sword of Awesomeness or that neck piece or that trinket that we needed. Then, of course, the second thing is reducing the loot tables and consolidating armor sets. Useful, but remember, you may put yourself into rolling against other people that you previously didn't have to. And then, of course, third is normalizing gear across the board for certain difficulties, specifically, end game hard modes. these are my ideas, and I'd be curious to think what you guys think about it. This is a bit of a stream of consciousness thing, and as you can see on the stream on the video right now, I stream on Twitch. I've got my socials up there, so you feel free to check those out. If you like what you see, feel free to drop a follow or a sub or whatever other metric-inducing behavior. And outside of that, I hope you all have a pleasant evening. So take care, and until next time, my name was Nim. Keep gaming and enjoy life. Bye.